Welcome to Cosmic Diaries. And this is Priya Kale, your astrologer. And in today's video, you could consider this a part 2 of the Mars-Saturn conjunction video. I recorded part 1 a few days ago, and I'll add a link here so you can check that out. This is where deep relationships are forming. Relationships that are going to change you. Scorpio is all about death and rebirth. So that's the part where evolution happens, metamorphosis happens. Scorpio is where energy and matter is recycled on a very, very core level, where something is changed and transformed and the old form cannot exist anymore. It's dead. So we are in a new cycle now, and this is, yes, a construction site being built of something entirely new. Scorpio is also rules the 8th house in astrology. So if we're talking about 8th house is about your deepest commitments, where you exchange energy on the deepest level. So sex, death, money. So when it's marriage, your resources and sex, and bloodlines. So what you get from your genes, from your parents. It's also about where you share values with another. Relationships are evolving deeply. Present relationships, perhaps with people you haven't met yet and will meet over the coming years. So Scorpio is where that energy is constantly evolving and transforming and changing, even when you can't see it, because it's happening. It's a very slow process. So you don't recognize that you've grown, but it's happening. Well, a soulmate relationship is nothing, by definition, it's a soul relationship. So it's not something that can be defined by earthly terms. So any fantasies that are perpetuated by the media are just that. That does not mean that you can't meet and find and develop a deep connection with someone in this lifetime, if you already are in a relationship or whether you're not. It's understanding that, especially a soulmate connection, when I'm talking about, looking at it astrologically and energy, they come to change you. And the sole purpose of a soulmate relationship is to help you ultimately recognize your path towards enlightenment. And this is something that's ultimately it's a natural part of the evolutionary process. Because that's where Scorpio comes in. We keep recycling. We die, we're reborn, we die, we're reborn. But if you want to get out of this karmic wheel, let's back up a little bit, because we're also talking about Mars. So Mars is in his home sign in Scorpio, but Mars is also the ruler of Aries. So just bear with me. I'm making a point here. If we look at Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, opposite sign is Libra, which represents relationships. So when we're looking at the Aries-Libra axis, we're looking at, again, Aries ruled by Mars, Venus rules Libra. We're looking at relationships. Aries is passion, desire, Libra is the other, and where you find a sense of balance with the other. So can you find a sense of harmony and balance with someone else? Then the relationship deepens. So you get to Taurus-Scorpio axis, where Taurus, that's where the relationship gets physical, or a commitment solidifies. Then the opposite axis, Scorpio, where this conjunction is taking place right now. That's the 8th house, which comes after Libra. So after a relationship has found a balance, after you found a balance with someone, then you have to go deeper into the relationship, where you learn the darker side of someone else, And this is not, again, darker does not have to mean evil, but it just means that we all have stuff that we're still resolving and transforming and working through in our own life and purifying. There's a alchemical process that's going on at any given point in all of us. I mean, that's our evolutionary journey. That's Scorpio. So wherever you have Scorpio in your chart, depending on your sign or your natal chart as well, that's where in your life there's always a level of evolution that's happening. So if you're a Scorpio yourself or Scorpio rising, you feel this very personally. If you are a Leo, then this energy is in your fourth house. So it relates with your family, your past, your history, your roots, where you live, your home, your sense of security. So again, it's important to know your chart, but coming back to the Scorpio energy, as it concerns relationships, this is where a relationship changes, where two people meet and there is deep change that happens. But Scorpio also, you have to remember, is the sign of death and rebirth. So this is where a relationship either evolves from Scorpio to when it evolves from Scorpio to Sagittarius, which is the sign that comes after Scorpio, the sign of freedom, and what comes after death. What do we learn from that? Because Sagittarius is opposite Gemini. So after Taurus, Scorpio, so after going back, Aries, Libra, you have passion, you have balance, you decide to enter a relationship with someone. Then the relationship, gets more physical. You see how you are with each other, whether you're compatible sexually, whether you're financially compatible, because this is, again, reality. Taurus, Scorpio, this is reality at its core level. Can you merge on that level with another? Because and Scorpio is that test. After that comes Gemini, Sagittarius, where then Gemini represents a choice. Do you still choose to be in a relationship? And if you do, then how do you communicate with another? So you can find a balance of power going forward. And then Sagittarius, the sign that comes after Scorpio, says you have the freedom to choose whether you want to be with someone or not, now that you know all that you know through the Scorpio experience. But you have to be honest. You have to be honest about your needs, and then you are free to choose where you want to be. Because any relationship born out of obligation or guilt is not going to last. So maybe I've digressed a little bit, but so that's how or at least astrologically, ideally, a relationship should work. But what happens is you meet someone, and then suddenly you've had all of these fantasies in your head that are everyone. You have all of these fantasies in your head of what an ideal relationship should look like, whether it comes from media, from mostly your parents' relationship or your primary caregivers, or the relationship role models that you saw played out when you were a child. Those become our models for relationship, and we're subconsciously always imprinting that fantasy on the people that we meet or consider as our partners or potential partners. And then when that person feeling of, either something being too good to be true, or then that's wanting a soulmate, desiring a soulmate, or perhaps having a fantasy of something, it's very dreamy energy. It's also very seductive. That fantasy on whoever you meet or whatever you meet. let something evolve. Let experience be your teacher through this. And don't try to gauge, it does not have to be a chess match. You need not gauge someone else's intentions or try to judge someone else's intentions, because you can't. You don't. You will never know. You can only decide for yourself what you want to enter into deeper or not. And that's something that you can learn only through experience rather than diving into something that you don't know anything about. It's just a matter of being conscious of what you're doing. Or as I said in my blog the other day, this is fiery energy. So, and Scorpio is about death and rebirth. So Mars and Scorpio is, it's, you're flirting with, not flirting with danger, but you're playing with fire, and you have to be conscious. So whatever you choose is fine. Just be honest with yourself about what you're doing. Don't be in any denial with yourself. And that's a big theme that's coming up with this big full moon. Over the next 2 years, relationships are going to require work, and soulmate relationships are far from being some idealistic romantic fantasy. They are here to get you to recognize and be a mirror to yourself and your soul, so you can evolve on your journey. Something is constantly changing. It's in a constant state of evolution. So what Virgo new moon at the time of this conjunction, it's a matter of, it's a daily process. And you can't, now Mars is in Scorpio, so it's at the other home sign. But there's a level of maturity that's required here, and action. So words aren't enough. It's very easy to project a fantasy, but it's very important now that you stay grounded in reality, because otherwise your desires and your attachment to those desires, which is Scorpio, could lead you astray. And when I say astray, we're never led astray. We're always on the path that we're supposed to be on, but you have a choice in which lessons you want to learn. So if you're going to be chasing a fantasy, then you're going to end up disappointed. Now, that doesn't mean that something that seems really like something that you want to explore, you should stay away from. But it's a matter of knowing your boundaries and knowing how deep you want to enter into a situation. So it's Scorpio, it's dark waters. So you have to test the waters. That means you have to go by your experience of something or someone, actions. And this is also very catalytic energy. So you don't know why, rather than be attached to the reason of what reason someone is in your life for, but try to let this be an experience. You enjoy the experience, and not just enjoy the experience, because with Mars and Scorpio, you're sure something may be very seductive and tempting, but it's also Virgo. So do you enjoy the experience, and is it serving a deeper purpose? Also, being aware that actions have consequences. So it's not about right or wrong, but it's about making your choices in awareness. So whatever relationships you do form at this time, whether they're personal relationships, romantic relationships, an existing relationship, your relationships with colleagues and business partners, people you're meeting on a daily basis, there are deep exchanges taking place. We get caught up in what the definition of a relationship means, and what I'm trying to say here is that every interaction you have right now, especially under this Mars-Saturn and Scorpio conjunction, then Virgo is the part that comes after love. So are you able to work together? Are you able to share life's daily moments with each other when the passion and the romance has died? Or are you just going to get on each other's nerves, which happens anyway in long-term relationships because we're human. But then how do you have a satisfying relationship with another person and sustain it? It's a matter of course, desire, commitment, choice. But it's also when you really want a soulmate relationship, it's about doing that work. Are you able to sustain and do that work on a daily basis? And does that union serve a greater purpose, which is ultimately a soul purpose, which has nothing to do with you and your ego or me and my ego, but it has to do with a greater purpose. Soulmate relationships are the ones that are the most difficult ones because we have karma from lifetimes, and we're resolving a lot of that stuff now. People who seem to have easy relationships are likely people who don't have a lot of past karmic uh, stuff to resolve. There's a bee that just buzzed in, so if it gets really close, I'm gonna stop. And it did. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I think we'll be fine. It's not that you can't have a fulfilling, satisfying relationship with someone you connect with on a deep soul level. You can, but it takes a lot more than just a fantasy. It requires the work, it requires commitment, it requires a choice, a daily commitment. Because you could be with someone and attractions can happen. But then do you choose to pursue that, or do you choose to be faithful? And there is no right or wrong. That's Scorpio, that's values. There's no right or wrong about that. It's a matter of you being honest with yourself because at some point it's going to come out anyway. And yes, there's a matter of you hurt someone else. There's no easy way to end a relationship ever because you've gotten into Scorpio. So the ties are deep, the energetic bonds are deep. So even if there are relationships ending right now, there's a lot of that being resolved. There are endings and beginnings because Scorpio is about endings. There's both going on at the moment. Not in a relationship and you would like to invite someone who's a partner, and perhaps you would consider someone you would consider as a soulmate, then it's a matter of clearing that space in your life so you can attract the right partners, and then recognizing you have the power to choose. That's the only power we have. We only have the illusion of control, and the only power we have is the power to choose. And Scorpio teaches you that. At the time of this conjunction is saying, clear up that space. Nature abhors a vacuum, and automatically you're going to attract the people in your life that align with your values. Relationships in your life that are dead weight or drain you. And this doesn't mean that you just let go of someone or cut someone off, but first, yes, you have to see whether someone's influence in your life is something that's constructive, and vice versa. So you have to clear your space of those relationships, and that just means letting go, and the ones that are meant to fall away will fall away. That's a choice that you make every day, and you don't know what the deeper purpose of a connection is, and you don't know what's being born. You're only one half of the equation, and all you can be aware of is what you're feeding into it, and will grow. But you don't have to feel like you have to give something to please someone or be attached to something, or that's where those power struggles need not come in. It's a matter of you being able to be yourself, share of yourself, and also know your boundaries, limitations, and focus your energy on your life first, and then trust that the right people will fit in and you will fit in with theirs, and you'll find a way to make it work. This weekend on the 8th of September at 9:38 p.m. at 16 degrees of Pisces, the sun is at 16 degrees of Virgo. This is the big one. I have written more about that on my blog, so please do check that out. And I've also, of course, written about it in the weekly astrology report, which, again, if you sign up, I'll send it out to you in your email, but all those details are in my blog, so do check out the blog page. But this is the big full moon, and it's romantic, it's dreamy, but at the same time, stay in touch with reality, because there are bittersweet lessons that are coming through at the moment. So it can be magical, but you have to surrender to that magic and not try to define it. Just be open to receive. All right, I'll stop here for now. Thanks as always for watching. And yes, this is the Mars-Saturn cycle. Goes on for 2 years. So I'd suggest check this video out in a few months and see how it applies and if it still applies. All right, ta-da for now.